Section 47 of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Lin Li. The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1, by Cao Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bancroft Joly. Chapter 20, Part 1. Wang Xifeng, with earnest words, upbraids Mrs. Chao's jealous notions. Lin Tai-yü uses specious language to make sport of Shi Xiangyun's querulous tone of voice. But to continue. Pao-yü was in Tai-yü's apartments, relating about the rat elves, when Pao-ch'ai entered unannounced, and began to jibe Pao-yü with trenchant irony, how that on the 15th of the first moon, he had shown ignorance of the allusion to the green wax, and the three of them then indulged in that room in mutual poignant satire, for the sake of fun. Pao-yü had been giving way to solicitude, lest Tai-yü should, by being bent upon napping soon after her meal, be shortly getting an indigestion, or lest sleep should, at night, be completely dispelled. As neither these things were conducive to the preservation of good health, when luckily Pao-ch'ai walked in, and they chatted and laughed together, and when Lin Tai-yü at length lost all inclination to doze, he himself then felt composed in his mind. But suddenly they heard clamouring begin in his room, and after they had all lent an ear and listened, Lin Tai-yü was the first to smile and make a remark. "It's your nurse having a row with Hsüeh," she said. "Hsüeh treats her well enough, but that nurse of yours would also like to keep her well under her thumb. She's indeed an old dotard." And Pao-yü was anxious to go over at once, but Pao-ch'ai laid hold of him and kept him back, suggesting, "It's as well that you shouldn't wrangle with your nurse, for she's quite stupid from old age, and it's but fair, on the contrary, that you should bear with her a little." "I know all about that," Pao-yü rejoined. But having concluded this remark, he walked into his room, where he discovered Nurse Li, leaning on her staff, standing in the centre of the floor, abusing Hsüeh, saying, "You young wench! How utterly unmindful you are of your origin! It's I who raised you up, and yet, when I came in just now, you put on high airs and mighty side, and remained reclining on the stove couch. You saw me well enough, but you paid not the least heed to me. Your whole heart is set upon acting like a wily enchantress to befool Pao-yü, and you so impose upon Pao-yü that he doesn't notice me, but merely lends an ear to what you people have to say. You're no more than a low girl bought for a few taels and brought in here, and will it ever do that you should be up to your mischievous tricks in this room? But whether you like it or not, I'll drag you out from this, and give you to some mean fellow, and we'll see whether you will still behave like a very imp, and cajole people or not." Hsüeh was, at first, under the simple impression that the nurse was wrath for no other reason than because she remained lying down, and she felt constrained to explain that she was unwell, that she had just succeeded in perspiring, and that having had her head covered, she hadn't really perceived the old lady. But when she came subsequently to hear her mention that she imposed upon Pao-yü, and also go so far as to add that she would be given to some mean old fellow, she unavoidably experienced both a sense of shame and injury, and found it impossible to restrain herself from beginning to cry. Pao-yü had, it is true, caught all that had been said, but unable with any propriety to take notice of it, he thought it his duty to explain matters for her. "She's ill," he observed, "and is taking medicines, and if you don't believe it," he went on, "well then, ask the rest of the servant girls." Nurse Li, at these words, flew into a more violent dudgeon. "Your sole delight is to screen that lot of sly foxes," she remarked, "and do you pay any notice to me? No, none at all. And whom would you like me to go and ask? Who's it that doesn't back you? And who hasn't been dismounted from her horse by that Hsüeh? I know all about it, but I'll go with you and explain all these matters to our old mistress and my lady. For I've nursed you till I've brought you to this age, and now that you don't feed on milk, you thrust me on one side, and avail yourself of the servant girls, in your wish to browbeat me." As she uttered this remark, she too gave way to tears, but by this time, Tai-yü and Pao-ch'ai had also come over, and they set to work to reassure her. "You, old lady," they urged, "should bear with them a little, and everything will be right." And when nurse Li saw these two arrive, she hastened to lay bare her grievances to them, and taking up the question of the dismissal in days gone by, of Hsüeh for having drank some tea, of the cream eaten on the previous day, and other similar matters, she spun a long interminable yarn. By a strange coincidence, lady Feng was at this moment in the upper rooms, where she had been making up the account of losses and winnings, and upon hearing at the back a continuous sound of shouting and bustling, she readily concluded that nurse Li's old complaint was breaking forth, and that she was finding fault with Pao-yü's servants. But she had, as luck would have it, lost money in gambling on this occasion, so that she was ready to visit her resentment upon others. With hurried step, she forthwith came over, and laying hold of nurse Li, "Nurse," she said smiling, "don't lose your temper, on a great festival like this, and after our venerable lady has just gone through a day in excellent spirits. You're an old dame, and should, when others get up in a row, still do what is right and keep them in proper order. And aren't you, instead of that, aware what good manners imply, that you will start vociferating in this place, and make our dowager lady full of displeasure? Tell me who's not good, and I'll beat her for you. But be quick, and come along with me over to my quarters, where a pheasant which they have roasted is scalding hot, and let us go and have a glass of wine." And as she spoke, she dragged her along and went on her way. "Feng Er," she also called, "hold the staff for your old lady Li, and the handkerchief to wipe her tears with." While nurse Li walked along with lady Feng, her feet scarcely touched the ground, as she kept on saying, "I don't really attach any value to this decrepit existence of mine, and I had rather disregard good manners, have a row and lose face, as it's better, it seems to me, than to put up with that temper of that wench." Behind followed Pao-ch'ai and Tai-yü, and at the sight of the way in which lady Feng dealt with her, they both clapped their hands, and exclaimed, laughing, "What piece of luck that this gust of wind has come and dragged away this old matron!" While Pao-yü nodded his head to and fro, and soliloquized with a sigh, "One can neither know whence originates the score, for she will choose the weak one to maltreat, nor can one see what girl has given her offence that she has come to be put in her back books." Scarcely had he ended this remark, before Ching-wen, who stood by, put in her word. "Who's gone mad again?" she interposed, "and what good would come by hurting her feelings? But did even any one happen to hurt her, she would have pluck enough to bear the brunt, and wouldn't act so improperly as to involve others." Hsi Jen wept, and as she did so, she drew Pao-yü towards her. "All through my having aggrieved an old nurse," she urged, "you've now again given umbrage, entirely on my account, to this crowd of people, and isn't this still enough for me to bear, but must you also go and drag in the third parties?" When Pao-yü realized that to this sickness of hers had also been superadded all these annoyances, he promptly stifled his resentment, suppressed his voice and consoled her so far as to induce her to lie down again to perspire. And when he further noticed how scalding like soup and burning like fire she was, he himself watched by her, and reclining by her side, he tried to cheer her, saying, "All you must do is take good care of your ailment, and don't give your mind to those trifling matters, and get angry." "Were I," Hsi Jen smiled sardonically, "to lose my temper over such concerns, would I be able to stand one moment longer in this room? The only thing is that if she goes on, day after day, doing nothing else than clamour in this manner, How can she let people get along? But you rashly go and hurt people's feelings for our sakes. But they'll bear it in mind, and when they find an opportunity, they'll come out with what's easy enough to say, but what's not pleasant to hear. And how will we all feel then?" While her mouth gave utterance to these words, she could not stop her tears from running. But fearful, on the other hand, lest Pao-yü should be annoyed, she felt compelled to again strain every nerve to repress them. But in a short while, the old matrons, employed for all sorts of duties, brought in some mixture of two drugs, and, as Pao-yü noticed that she was just on the point of perspiring, he did not allow her to get up, but readily taking it up to her, she immediately swallowed it, with her head still on her pillow, whereupon he gave speedy directions to the young servant maids to lay her stove couch in order. "Whether you mean to have anything to eat or not," Hsüeh advised, "you should after all sit for a time with our old mistress and our lady, and have a romp with the young ladies, after which you can come back again, while I, by quietly keeping lying down, will also feel the better." When Pao-yü heard this suggestion, he had no help but to accede, and, after she had divested herself of her hairpins and earrings, and he saw her lie down, he betook himself into the drawing-rooms, where he had his repast with old lady Chia. But the meal over, her ladyship felt still disposed to play at cards with the nurses, who had looked after the household for many years, and Pao-yü, bethinking himself of Hsüeh, hastened to return to his apartments, where, seeing that Hsüeh was drowsily falling asleep, he himself would have wished to go to bed, but the hour was yet early. And as about this time, Qingwen, Yixia, Qinwen, Pihen had all, in their desire of getting some excitement, started in search of Yuanyang, Hu Po and their companions, to have a romp with them, and he espied She Yue alone in the outer room, having a game of dominoes by lamplight. Pao-yü inquired full of smiles, "How is it you don't go with them?" "I've no money," She Yue replied. "Under the bed," continued Pao-yü, "is heaped up all that money, and isn't it enough yet for you to lose from?" "Had we all gone to play," She Yue added, "to whom would the charge of this apartment have been handed over? That other one is sick again, and the whole room is above one mass of lamps, and below full of fire, and all those old matrons, ancient as the heavens, should, after all their exertions in waiting upon you from morning to night, be also allowed some rest; while the young servant girls, on the other hand, have likewise been on duty the whole day long, and shouldn't they even at this hour be left to go and have some distraction? And that's why I am in here on watch." When Pao-yü heard these words, which demonstrated distinctly that she was another Hsüeh, he consequently put on a smile and remarked, "I'll sit in here, so you had better set your mind at ease and go." "Since you remain in here, there's less need for me to go," resumed She Yue, "for we two can chat and play and laugh, and won't that be nice?" "What can we two do? It will be awfully dull, but never mind," Pao-yü rejoined. "This morning you said that your head itched, and now that you have nothing to do, I may as well comb it for you." "Yes, do so," readily assented She Yue, upon catching what he suggested, and while still speaking, she brought over the dressing case containing a set of small drawers and looking-glass, and taking off her ornaments, she dishevelled her hair, whereupon Pao-yü picked up the fine comb and passed it repeatedly through her hair. But he had only combed it 3 or 5 times, when he perceived Qingwen hurriedly walk in to fetch some money. As soon as she caught sight of them both, "You haven't as yet drunk from the marriage cup," she said with a smile full of irony, "and have you already put up your hair? Now that you've come, let me also comb yours for you," Pao-yü continued. "I'm not blessed with such excessive good fortune," Qingwen retorted, and as she uttered these words, she took the money, and forthwith dashing the portiere after her, she quitted the room. Pao-yü stood at the back of She Yue, and She Yue sat opposite the glass, so that the two of them faced each other in it, and Pao-yü, readily observed as he gazed in the glass. In the whole number of rooms she's the only one who has a glib tongue. Hsüeh, at these words, hastily waved her hand towards the inside of the glass, and Pao-yü understood the hint, and suddenly a sound of "hu" was heard from the portiere, and Qing-wen ran in once again. "How have I got a glib tongue?" she inquired. "It would be well for us to explain ourselves." "Go after your business and have done," Hsüeh interposed laughingly. "What's the use of your coming and asking questions of people?" "Will you also screen him?" Qing-wen smiled significantly. "I know all about your secret doings, but wait until I've got back my capital, and we'll then talk matters over." With this remark still on her lips, she straightway quitted the room, and during this while, Pao-yü, having finished combing her hair, asked Hsüeh to quietly wait upon him while he went to sleep, as he would not like to disturb Hsi Jen. End of section 47.